Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Won't someone think of the Return to the Mac pod, for God's sake? Hello and welcome to a special Andy Takes That Chance podcast. It's the emergency pod, aka the Gracias, Carlos Corberán episode. Two people resigned today, but there's only one we care about, and that's the Professor El Jefe, Mr. CC. To unpick the fallout, hear other people's reactions, and answer your questions, I'm joined by Tom Bradshaw and Josh Scott. Tom, how are you feeling about the news?
Hiya, Brady, mate. I don't know. It's a weird one. I'm feeling all right because I had some good news today. So I got tickets for that Cribs gigs that's happening in town, which is going to be like in the parish. So I mean, what were the chances of that? So I was on a buzz, and then literally I just bought those tickets, and my mate who I'm going with texted me saying Carlos is gone, and I thought, is he just having a laugh here, because we've just done something. And then checking it, it was really weird. It is a really weird one. So I don't know, mate, at the moment. Maybe I haven't processed it enough yet.
Well, you know, if any listeners can take comfort, it's that Tom got his Cribs tickets. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure they'll get him through it. Joe, same question, really. How are you holding up? Did you get some gig tickets today? Did that cheer you up?
No, I didn't have any good news today, so I'm a net negative for the day. But yeah, again, a friend texted me in the morning saying Carlos is going, and I just text back saying, "Don't wind me up." I hadn't had a coffee yet. And then it turned out to be true. I'm just shocked. I didn't really see that coming at all. A little bit scared for the future as well, but what can we do?
Well, what can we do? We can talk about it for an hour or so, Joe. That's what we can do. Which we'll come on to. But before we get started, I drunkenly agreed to do this on a stag do, and I am a man of my word, unlike one of the other people who's resigned today. I promised I'd shout someone out, and I'm going to do that now. So shout out to Joel Conte. You've got it on one of the biggest pods we've probably done in a long time. Dear Lord, what a sad little life, Joel. Just kidding. Love you, mate. There you go. There's your shout out. Right. Okay. Let's get into the pod. Right. Okay. We'll get our reactions in a bit more detail later, but let's focus on what we know. We've had a statement from the club, which featured quotes from Lee Bromby and Dean Hoyle. Joe, I tasked you with picking out some bits from Mr. Bromby's statement. So what did you pick out? What interested you?
It was actually the start, because it's the bit that's made me go thinking the most after. He said, "It was with sadness that we've accepted Carlos's resignation. He was obviously a big part of what was a fantastic season in 21-22, but has subsequently come to us over the past 24 hours and made it clear he doesn't think he's a man to take us forward. The timing is disappointing with our preparations for the new season already underway." I just thought it was interesting, because I've been thinking as soon as the news broke, I was like, oh, we as a club have done something to piss Carlos off. That was my initial reaction. And then Bromby's quote, "You never know if it's 100% spin and he's just protecting the club," but he's come out pretty strongly there and suggested it was Carlos's decision. So that's been getting me thinking as well, because you're obviously like, well, why would Carlos want to leave after pulling off that season? Something to build on, isn't it, and have another go. So yeah, that's very professional, Joe. I mean, we can do wild libelous speculation here, so feel free to jump in there if you want. No, that's fair enough. Yeah, I had a look at what Dean said, kind of spit it down. You've really condensed it, Joe. I have not. I think the things, again, touching on what you said, he said, "I know the timing of this news will come as a real shock to our supporters. We felt the same when Carlos asked to meet Lee on Wednesday, and he made it clear he would be leaving." And then Dean always likes doing a bit of a rallying call. So I think this is kind of it. There's always moments around the corner that test you. This is one of those moments, but I honestly believe we are in a great position as a club. And then he goes later on to say, "I assure everyone that we will do all we can to continue to drive this club forward after a really positive 12 months. We need to have trust in what we have built at the club and keep faith.
I've talked about how this club has rediscovered our terrier spirit, and it's times like this when we must show exactly what that means. It's about togetherness, coming together and pulling in one direction for the greater good of Huddersfield Town. So again, obviously terrier spirit was back previously, and Dean's asking the fans to do that. Now we can probably, judging from some of the questions, we'll probably go into a bit more detail about the terrier spirit and Dean's comments. But yeah, just a bit, like you say, a bit of an interesting one. Clearly, Joe, Carlos's decision in this, not made by the club, not similar to what Phil did with the Cowleys, where that was a bit of a surprise. It's clearly Carlos's, well, he has resigned, hasn't he? So I'm sure we'll look at it in a bit more detail. Tom, you took a look at Carlos's statement, didn't you?
Yes.
What did you make of it? Was there anything you pulled out?
Beautiful bit of graphic design, to be fair to him. He's got that nice little. I mean, it does look like maybe he's died, because he's made it look like he's turned into a ghost in the top left corner.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. But touching on, just listening to what YouTube just said, it actually does line up. He mentions that he doesn't feel that there's an alignment anymore, and he doesn't feel that he can take the club in the right directions, which kind of makes sense, because he is so like, everything's got to be perfect, football's got to be perfect, I need to be in the right place. And I do feel like if he some reason didn't feel like he was going to get the best out of himself at Town, he would step away. It's very interesting how he kind of leveled all the people he mentioned. So like Phil Hodgson, it was just like, yeah, thanks for appointing me. Bromby, it was like, thanks for the opportunity, fantastic opportunity. And then the Dean Oil thing, where he says, and thanks for the massive contribution for injecting great energy and enthusiasm. So like, everything's really appreciative of the club.
Yeah.
It just asks those questions of what is the alignment that has now strayed away? Why has that changed all of a sudden? Kind of seems quite out of sync, because it can't be the signings, because I know we've been tracking that Kasumu for a couple of years now, because it's always been on the radar of him coming in and doing Hoggy's job when Hoggy eventually goes. Maybe it's the lack of it. I don't know. It is really interesting, because now that you two have gone through yours, they do all line up really well. And I'll give him a minus, take 2 points off his statement, because he calls Huddersfield the city, which is out of order.
Okay. I mean,
we've not got a cathedral, have we? So,
well, to be fair, no, we're not going to get into fucking town planning and what makes cities, but some cities, there's new cities all the time, so who knows? Maybe he's predicting in the future.
Maybe.
Yeah, Joe, what do you think about Carlos's comments? I think we've seen, particularly after the playoff final, for example, when we don't need to labour it, but those two decisions, he wasn't really getting drawn into that. He was just like, we didn't, the officials have a difficult job. So not surprising that Carlos has a good statement and he's not really going to dig anyone out, is he?
No, that's true. That's true. But he does seem to have been particularly complimentary. I think normally you can sense a bit of like an undertone, but there it's just sort of like, it seems quite genuine about it, which just makes the question of, well, what was the misalignment even bigger? And I haven't got a clue. Maybe it is, as Tom just touched on, that we didn't sign enough players. And if it was signing players that he didn't want, he'd have probably left long ago, because I'm sure if that is what's happening, we were doing that the whole time. So I'm sure he'd have gone before. So yeah, I really can't figure out what it is. It's bothering me.
I mean, it does all sound like it's all on him, really. Yeah. Now we're dissolving it, like straight away. And my gut reaction was like, oh, Dean Oils sacked him.
Yeah,
like Dean Oils got rid of him. But now kind of processing it all and kind of linking these statements together. And like you said, there's not even a hint that he's pissed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Could it be the old like personal reasons. His family's not liking it here, but not even then. They normally sort of reference that.
I mean, to be fair though, we saw him, when we secured playoffs with the win against Barnsley, brought his kid out on the pitch, did a little lap. I don't know. I think we'll again we can speculate, but I think the questions, they'll kind of do that for us. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll think tactically about how to answer. But I think it's fair to say this was a bit of surprise, and we wanted to find out the neutral view from those in the media. Tom, you caught up earlier with someone the listeners know well. Would you like to introduce you a little bit? It's normally me who introduces, but go on.
Yeah, so I travelled all the way up to Derby on the high-speed train just to ask Justin Peach 3 questions. What are your thoughts on the sacking today? And here they are.
What are your initial thoughts on the news of Carlos Corberán departing the club?
Well, initial thoughts are a disappointment, to be honest with you, because he's a coach that I like a lot, and it was nice to see a club like Huddersfield, who weren't spending a lot of money, who were doing it in a way that a lot of clubs don't do in the Championship. They were doing it their way, and Corberán fitted into that philosophy perfectly. So to see him leave is huge disappointment, but you can sort of understand the reasoning, but the timing actually is something that really frustrates me. To do this now, to do this on the cusp of the season starting is really frustrating, and I can understand why fans will be angry at the timing and at Corberán. But in this situation, I think all parties are blameless, to be honest with you.
What do you think of the job Carlos has done with Huddersfield Town?
I think the job Corberán has done with Huddersfield is monumental. He's shown that you can work with a small budget, and you can work in a way that suits the football club and the players, because what he achieved last season was absolutely spectacular, to be honest with you. Obviously, we tipped him, Second Tier Podcast tipped Huddersfield to go down, and they defied all expectations, which was actually incredible. And even his first season, it was full of ups and downs, but he eradicated every issue that the team had and made them so solid, one of the best defensive teams in the division. And you can't laud that. That is unbelievable coaching, game management, etc. He's done a really good job.
Danny Schofield, former Town player and previously part of the first team, is taking charge now. What do you think of Huddersfield's chances this season, with the campaign just 3 weeks away?
Internal appointments always worry me. They always worry me, and we had these reservations with Steve Morrison. Obviously, Cardiff fans think we hate Steve Morrison and hate Cardiff, but actually no, it's just internal appointments don't always work, and they're always seen as a cheap option, and it's hard to disagree with that. Now, Danny Schofield has been part of the coaching structure at Huddersfield for a while, so that might help matters. But what are his credentials as a head coach? It's hard to see now. But if I was to predict where Huddersfield would finish the season, it's hard to see them finishing in the top half, because the squad is a good squad, but it's a good squad made up with a good style of play. And because Danny Schofield's coming in and we're not sure what he's going to bring to the table, it's really hard to see where Huddersfield are going to finish. As I was mentioning earlier, you can be frustrated at both Dean Hoyle and Carlos Corberán in this situation. Obviously, the timing of Corberán's departure is frustrating, but for me, Dean Hoyle has an opportunity to take Huddersfield to a level that they've not been at for a while, and Corberán was like mine. I actually view Corberán as a better coach than David Wagner, and I really do mean that. So to allow him to leave as easily as has been done and without backing him is really frustrating, and it does smack of a lack of ambition. But you have to understand where Huddersfield have come from in the last few years. That Premier League spend has really set them back, and had money been spent more wisely, I don't think this scenario would crop up.
Wonderfully done. Apart from you didn't mention it was the second tier podcast in case people didn't know, but it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
I'll eight and a half for first effort.
I'll work on it, boss.
Yeah, good lad. I want to see you putting the hard yards in training. Anyway, I also spoke to another familiar face who's been a guest on this podcast, Elliot Jackson from the Championship Chat podcast, and here's his thoughts on Carlos's departure.
Hi guys, Elliot Jackson here from the Championship Chat podcast. Pretty shocked at the news today with Carlos Corberán leaving, as I think the entirety of the Huddersfield Town fan base are, but also the Championship community. A real blow to the Terriers to lose Corberán, not just in general, but to lose him 3 weeks before the start of the season. It's a massive blow after the miracles he worked last season on a pretty shoestring budget. Initial thoughts, I think the timing of it certainly is questionable. I think that if Corberán knew he wasn't going to be the man to take Huddersfield Town forward, then he should have done so earlier in the summer. I think it quite clearly came as a shock to everyone behind the scenes at Huddersfield, both the owner and Lee Bromby, of course. And I think Huddersfield have dealt with it as well as they can in terms of a swift statement, trying for continuity, but it certainly comes as a blow. I'm surprised at the timing, as I say, and I think Huddersfield Town fans certainly have a right to feel a little bit disappointed in Corberán in the not the manner he's gone, but the timing of it. If he'd done this, 3 weeks ago, then I think they would have been in a much better position, and it would have been a lot more understandable. Clearly, there's, in my opinion, when you look at the sort of core reasons behind it, I think clearly there's been some disparity on what Corberán thinks he needs in terms of a transfer budget to strengthen the team, with the likelihood that they will lose Harry Toffolo and potentially Lewis O'Brien as well. Keeping Sober Thomas was a boost, but ultimately when you lose Levi Colwill as well in that back three, it was a team that didn't need major surgery, but definitely needed strengthening in key areas to make sure that they were on track to challenge again right at the top of the division. And I think what they did last season was remarkable, a near miracle job from Corberán and the squad as well. And without those key recruits, I think the business has been solid so far. I don't think it's been spectacular, but again, we would have said this last summer as well with the free signings that they made of Matty Pearson, Tom Lees, Lee Nichols, etc. So I want to try and learn from last year's mistakes by underplaying the Huddersfield Town recruitment, but by the same token, you've got to be honest, and it doesn't inspire that they'll have a stronger team on the opening day of the season in 3 weeks than what they finished the season with in the playoff final. So I can understand it from that point of view with Corberán. Maybe he feels there's not the budget there to really challenge at the top again, which is what he wants to do, carry on climbing for his own career. But ultimately, I think the timing's pretty poor from him, and to give them 3 weeks before the start of the season is a little bit disappointing. But clearly, he's done a fantastic job at Huddersfield Town. That shouldn't be overshadowed. To get them from 20th after his first season, and they look like a team that could play decent football on the day, but just an absolute car crash defensively in that first season, to then go to a team that was one of the best defences in the league. Lee Nichols, Championship goalkeeper of the season, completely different side, what completely. And I think they were a lot more pragmatic last season, really good at getting results away from home. And I think tactically Corberán showed he could adapt and improve footballers, and that's one of the key elements you've got to look at when you talk about the best managers. Have they improved the players at their disposal? And undoubtedly Carlos Corberán has done that. So he's done an absolutely fantastic job at Huddersfield. And last season really justified the faith that Phil Hodgkinson had put in him by sacking Danny Cowley quite controversially at the time to bring Corberán in. But ultimately hindsight will show that it was a good decision, despite the disappointment of the way that he's departed today. Danny Schofield coming in, obviously part of the backroom staff previously. I think undoubtedly it's a gamble. I can understand why Huddersfield have done it, given that they operate with a head of football operations, and the idea of that is a key personnel like Carlos Corberán leaves. You've got that continuity and that ideology and structure in a football club. You're not ripping up the squad and starting from scratch every time you have a managerial change. I like that idea. Could they have gone out on the market and found someone? I think possibly. I think there's a lot of good managers, particularly in League One and League Two, up and coming, that could fit the Huddersfield Town style. Liam Manning, someone who I rate very highly at MK Dons, and I think that he will be the next big manager to get a chance in a championship job, and I think Huddersfield could have maybe stole a march by trying to do that. But nonetheless, we've seen it work in other scenarios. Paul Heckingbottom wouldn't have been the choice of any Sheffield United fan after Slavisa Jokanovic left the club last season, but nonetheless, he did a fantastic job and guided them into the playoff places from a mid-table position. So it can work. We've seen instances with Dean Holden at Bristol City and Jason Tindall at Bournemouth where it hasn't worked. It's undoubtedly a gamble, but Corberán was a gamble, really, in the first place. So we'll have to see. But I do think if I was a Huddersfield Town fan, I might have preferred them to dip into the market and see what's out there, because I do think there's a real array of managerial talent, particularly in the lower leagues up and coming. So we'll see where Huddersfield Town end up. But ultimately, it does make them weaker losing Corberán. There's no doubt about it. They would have preferred to have him going into the season with only 3 weeks to go. And if they really need to get resolved the futures over O'Brien and Toffolo as soon as they can, because they don't want that dragging into the season. Because if they've got question marks over key players, the manager's still trying to sort his squad out and get to grips with the team, albeit he's been part of Corberán's backroom staff, we could see perhaps a slower start than last season. And ultimately, if Huddersfield Town are going to compete at the top, they can't afford to be playing catch-up against some of the teams with bigger budgets from the off. So, massive day for Huddersfield Town, and hopefully we'll see some success with Danny Schofield in charge.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to come to you then. We've had a bit of time since the news broke this morning. Has the time helped you process this? I know we talked a little bit about the statements, but which kind of... have you had a different array of emotions today? Talk us through it.
Yeah, definitely. When it first happened, I think I said to you two that my initial reaction was I'm pissed off at the club, because without bothering to read anything, I just went straight in and assumed we'd gone and done something and it had all blown up in our face. So apart from that change, which got me on thinking, well, what the hell's happened? I haven't been able to find anything that's given me any clues, and that's just been bothering me all day. I think when it first happened, I was very worried, because I know you have to give a lot of credit to the players, but a lot of what we did last season, you have to say, was some galvanising effect that Carlos brought to the team. And my initial worry was, well, we've lost that. So how are we going to fare next season, or this season? So yeah, I was more worried earlier, but I think that's gone away a bit, and now I'm just wanting to know, well, why has it happened, and get a bit of understanding behind it. But yeah, I think we'll be all right. Obviously, Schofield's been mentioned as either temporary or who knows, a bit longer term, but I'm quite happy about that. They've been talking him up a lot. What was it they mentioned, that he could have gone to a top European league or something? Don't quite know what that means, but but yeah, they obviously fancy him quite a bit as a coach. So yeah, let's see how he does. Keep positive about it.
Yeah, and since we've been recording, Stephen Chickens tweeted that Schofield is the full-time replacement.
Okay.
How does that make you feel, Joe? Then, if it is Schofield's the man, do you think I'm assuming, we are fans of Huddersfield Town as much as we love Carlos. I assume you're going to be back in Danny.
Yeah. Well, he's done a great job so far, hasn't he? Wasn't he? Was he working a bit at Leeds before he came back to us? Yeah, and I think he did quite well there. And he's obviously done well since he's been back with us, and probably learned a hell of a lot of Carlos and the way he does things. I think Bromby sort of alluded to how Schofield fits with what the club wants in terms of training and style, which I guess is similar to what Carlos brought. So that's a positive thing as well. And obviously, I absolutely loved him growing up as a Town fan. So it'd be a great story if it works out for him. Yeah,
definitely. Tom, obviously you've had a bit more time. You've even played football since then. Just to get it out of there. That's very much like when I was a kid and Town would lose, I'd go on FIFA and put the result right.
Yeah.
What have you made of it? Like, obviously a bit more time. You seemed a bit chilled when I first spoke to you about it. Are you still chilled?
Well, like I said, Brady, literally at 10 o'clock, those tickets went on sale, and I'd somehow got some.
Are you getting paid by the Cribs or the parish?
Well,
What's going
mate,
on
yeah.
here?
Well, they're sold out. They sold out in like 10 minutes. So I was buzzing from that, and then so
Those babies sell themselves.
I was on a high. And then it went down a little bit. And then maybe midday I got a bit like, but then like I said, I've been running around for the last 2 hours taking it out on other people. So but it's really interesting what you said, like what Joe touched on at the start there. The kind of, I think the worrying thing for me is we'd all just got a really good feeling back in the fan base. And we'd all just, I think we all got to the end of that playoffs and thought, right, O'Brien's probably going to go, but at least Carlos is going to be taking us forward next season. I think that was kind of, I don't think anyone kind of thought that he would get poached by anyone, because in reality, he's still 50-50. He's had one terrible season and one really good season. Well, maybe not terrible. We didn't go down, but it really wasn't great, was it? So I think when I thought about it logically as well, it was kind of like, what a great season to build on from this. Yeah, I am gutted from that sense, because I really thought he'd keep it rolling. But I think it's the right decision not to bring someone else in. I think let Schofield have a go at it. Let him bring his people in. Schofield was at Leeds when Carlos was. Then he came to us first for under-19s. Then Carlos come over here and promoted Schofield to that first team squad. So it's like, obviously Carlos thought something of him. And then if Lee Bromby and Hoyle are giving it him straight away, they must see something. I get it's not a glamorous one, but he's a town legend. He loves the club. He's going to give his all, isn't he? The only one I'd probably, that's not the way the club works either. But I would like, the only person I'd probably say go for is Deitch, but that's not the way the club works now. So I think we've got to live with that as well as Town fans. That's not the way Town work now.
What would you say to the people who, I agree with what you're saying, like Schofield deserves a go. He's clearly highly thought of. There's a bit of consistency that you talked about there, but people would say it's the cheap option.
Wasn't Carlos the cheap option when we sacked the Cowleys? The Cowleys cost us loads of money to bring in, which I was gutted when they left, because I thought what a waste of money. But I also thought they'd go and do something, and actually they're just good League One managers, aren't they? Who can't seem to get out of League One. But I literally don't see the difference of Carlos and Danny Schofield of where they've come from, right?
Yeah.
The only gutting thing is that Carlos had built up something, and now we've gone back to square one straight away. That's the only annoying thing for me, is we were on a journey and now we've just started again, potentially the same journey with Danny Schofield. Like, next season could be terrible. The thing that I question is, will they give him as much time as Corberán got? Because that wasn't Dino in charge then, it was Phil. And that was the whole thing, were we not getting rid of Corberán at the time because we couldn't afford to either? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, will Schofield get a full season if he's down near the bottom for most of it? Or will they sack him and bring in kind of the standard safe hands in the Championship?
Yeah. I mean, I think initially I was like you guys. I got the news. I was disappointed. I agree with you. I think, with the playoff final, we can talk about that and how close we were and blah, blah, blah. But what appealed to me was, I agree with you. I think Brian, we all knew Brian was probably going to go. He probably still is. I think I was quite interested to see what they'd do if Carlos did have the money. And look, I'm not talking, I think most Town fans would agree with me here. If O'Brien went for 10, 12 million, I wouldn't expect, even the majority of that. I'm just talking like if Carlos had like 2 million to spend on players, I think for all we've criticised the recruitment team, the last 2 windows, they've done a really good job. They brought in players that were underwhelming at the time. I'll be first to admit it. Tom Lee Nichols didn't really, get my pulse racing, but they've done a great job, and I feel like they deserved another go in this summer. Mahoney and Kasuma's a bit different because we've been tracking him for a while. Mahoney, feel like that feels more of a punt, but then you see the crossing ability, and you're like, oh yeah, I can see why that makes sense in the Carlos system. I think Carlos, it was exciting to me because we had the moment with Wagner where it felt like we have to go up and this is our chance, but I didn't feel that as much with Carlos. Maybe that's because we've already been there and done it and been to the Prem, and obviously we know how badly that turned out in the end, but it did feel like this is an exciting opportunity to give him players what he more than what he wants. O'Brien's a great player, but I feel I would have been really interested to see what Carlos would have done with the midfield, how he would have changed it. I think, to be honest, you touched on Schofield. I'll back Schofield. He's going to be the manager. I think he deserves time. He deserves patience. I think it's. I hope he gets that, because I feel a bit sorry for the bloke. We were talking about it before we came on. It was kind of within the statement of Carlos resigning. It wasn't really. And maybe there's an interview coming in the coming days with him, who knows? But, this is his first head coach job. And, I feel like he's it's probably not the way he wanted it to be announced either. I think at time, it's just a classic time will tell with this. I think listeners know when we're on the pod, when the Cowleys went, I wasn't happy about it. I thought it was a big risk, and I'm happy to say I was proven wrong, particularly second season. So who knows? Who knows? I think it's tricky. It's tricky right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is always unsettling.
Tricky.
When a manager goes, but I think what Tom was saying earlier was right, that Schofield's in the same position as Carlos was when he first walked through the door, and look what's happened. And you could even argue that Schofield obviously has a history with the club, which counts for something, but also has worked under Carlos or with Carlos for a long time. So he's already up to pace with things. So there might not be a huge drop off. There might not be a huge change. I assume the players in the team already respect Schofield and get along with Schofield, so there wouldn't be that lag you get where a new manager has to get up to speed with them. So yeah, it might not be the worst. Tell you what, talking about it does help, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's come through that youth system. Like Schofield, I think when he first came, was he under 19s?
Yeah.
And then obviously, he played with John Worthing for God knows how long. So he's got that connection there. He's going to listen to John Worthington's points and stuff, and who he thinks is good, who could make the step up. I think it makes sense. It makes sense giving it him, especially at this stage, bringing in someone completely new with 2 weeks basically before the season starts, who might implement new ideologies and all that and change the team around. I think that is a worse idea.
Yeah, agreed. It's true that he's a cheap option, but it's also probably true that he's the best option right now.
He's a sensible option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good point, guys. And also, he has managed 2 games for Town. He that 4-1 defeat against Millwall right at the end of the season when we let go of the Cowleys, and the 1-1 draw when Carlos had COVID right at the start against Derby. So, I think that I'm joking there, being a little tongue in cheek, but clearly, Carlos was happy for him to step up when he couldn't make it.
That's it.
COVID, so
that's it, Brady. Because none of his other assistants did it, did they? It's just Schofield each time when Carlos wasn't available. So, was it only one time Carlos wasn't available? So that, yeah. No.
Let's read massively into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool. Do you guys have anything else you want to say? I know we've got the questions, but just before we move on, anything you guys wanted to add about the decision today?
I don't. Well, I'll add. I don't. I think it was Carlos's decision. That's what I'll add at the end of that. Out of all of it, I think it was his decision.
Okay.
Yeah, and apologies to the club for my initial reaction based on nothing.
Joe, you might get a ban.
I know.
When you come back from Amsterdam to watch Town, as you're planning on doing, there'll just be 2 people in club tracksuits. Come with us. Okay, cool. So you've heard from us. Now some of the other lads from the pod wanted to say their thoughts. So Pozza, I spoke to earlier, he gave us his take on the news, and here it is.
Yeah, not really sure what to say about Carlos leaving, in all honesty. To start with, I think it's a strange time for it to happen, given we're only 3 weeks away from the start of the season. So something's clearly happened behind the scenes between him and the board for him to make this decision. I think reading over his statement and given what he said, and also the various articles online, it seems to be down to a lack of investment from the board that's led to him to do this. Carlos obviously had a fantastic season last season, and he clearly feels that with the current players he's got at the club, he's taken them as far as he can. But potentially with investment, he could take them further. Personally, I feel given his performance last season, he's earned every right to go to the board and ask for some backing. And obviously, with respect to the players already signed, I think Carlos would have liked to have a little bit more quality in areas, maybe up front, central midfield, especially if O'Brien goes, to enable him to push on and take the club forward. Of course, the club have no obligation to do this, and it seems from what we're reading today that they've refused that request, which has obviously led to Carlos walking away. Which, to be honest, is something I don't blame him for it at all. I understand obviously that we are swimming in pools of money at Town, but in football, if you're standing still, you're actually moving backwards because others around you invest and get stronger. You've only got to look at Luton and the signing that they've made, which apparently we were in for, to see that others around us are, investing and making signings. I think Carlos is a young manager who improved massively during his time with Town. He built a great foundation last season on which to build on, and sadly he hasn't been given that opportunity. I don't think nobody were expecting millions to be spent, but a few decent players, as I've said, in key areas would make a massive difference to this squad and give us a real chance of challenging for promotion again. I think it's a really short-sighted decision, and one that could potentially dismantle a lot of the hard work done by both Carlos and the club over the past 18 months. The togetherness that we had with this squad was, aching back to the Wagner days. I'm a massive believer in stability at football clubs, and changing managers like we seemingly do all the time, don't really allow for that. I think obviously only time will tell if the decision by the board to act in this way will pay off long term. Danny Schofield may come in and do just as good a job as Carlos, or an even better one. Obviously, I'm hoping that he can have every success and pick up from where Carlos has left off, and and maybe take us further than Carlos would have done. Can't say at this time. Obviously, you've got to look forward and maybe wait 12, 18, even 24 months to decide whether or not this were a good decision by the board. I just think for now, though, a lot will feel let down by the board. There were a lot of love for Carlos in the main for his achievements last season, and him going for the reasons reported will leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouths of many fans. We seemingly have a history of pulling the rug from under our feet when things look good for us, and I think this could be potentially one of those moments. Obviously no one is bigger than the club, and we'll all be back to support Town next season, and hopefully everybody will get behind Danny Schofield. But I think in the immediate aftermath of it all, there is a lot of fans questioning where Huddersfield Town want to be and where they want to go moving forward, because every time we seemingly have a good bit of success, we almost dismantle it ourselves. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Okay, and Cozzy also very kindly shared his views. Cozzy's a bit of a longer one, but it's Richard Kosmala. You wouldn't have it any other way.
Get the popcorn in. Get the popcorn in, lads.
Popcorn. Here you go.
Wow, incredible! I can't believe I'm doing this. I think when we all woke up this morning, we expected a big resignation in the country, but yeah, never thought it'd be Carlos Corberán. And yeah, my initial thoughts is sadness, really, absolutely gutting. It's incredible, really, to think when Norwich City put that 7th goal past us in his first season, that I'll kind of be sat here 40 months later, mourning the loss of him. It's so sad. And I think if we're all being honest, once the final whistle went at Wembley and we didn't get promoted, we knew that one or two things, we'd lose one or two, of the crown jewels, and probably still to happen, unfortunately, Toffolo, O'Brien. But Carlos, I did wonder, obviously, has he taken as far as he can go, as the old cliche goes, his stock had never been higher. No one can believe, even Town fans really, how well he's done and what he did really with, I know the coin, the old chant, fiver in the bank, but yeah, so disappointing. Just the thing that kind of sticks out for me, and again, I'm sure there's more will come out in the wash on this, but he's not got another job to go to, but part of you wonders if he's got something lined up, but it's just the timing of it. It's really, really odd, and obviously we've brought in our signings, which I know we've got a trusted recruitment team, for being honest, very underwhelming so far. A guy from Cheltenham, an ex-player, obviously a guy who never really featured for Millwall for half of the season, and obviously an MK Dons guy, hopefully as good as Nichols, but probably obvious intents and purposes a replacement for O'Brien. So but obviously Lee Nichols signing a new deal and one or two other positive noises, and obviously pre-season started as well. It's a bit of a short turnaround, so for this just to happen as it's done, and like no one really saw it coming, being normally you hear some rumours, people know stuff, there's one or two things on Twitter, but yeah, we're real shocked this morning. I know Pozza, we have a little WhatsApp group like probably everyone does, a Town group, and he said you might hear something today, another resignation apart from Boris, and they couldn't believe it. And obviously the more things came out, I think that story from the Mail and Henry went, and and that was it. It was gone. And I have to look back on him really first before we kind of look forward. Incredible, that first season, and obviously the season without any fans, that was massive for me. We couldn't really form any connection, and we got off to some bad start really, and he never really took off, did that season. One or two high points, but I think a lot of people were disappointed that Danny Cowley had gone as well. And I think if we're being honest as well, I think Carlos was a hard guy to to kind of latch onto really early doors. And I think the club had realised that later on with some of the stuff that they did with him, making him going on the pitch, and one or two I thought a bit fake kind of celebrations that were filmed and stuff as well. But obviously everyone warmed to him as results happened as well. And in that first season, I think most people, especially that game at Norwich, Carrow Road, when they scored that 7th goal, if you'd have thought that would have been sat here now, just like mourning his departure, you'd have been like on another planet. I think most would have got rid of him there. But obviously last season were incredible really, and much talked about the road to Wembley, and we don't want to touch over the decisions again, but very unlucky in the final. But that was the thing though, I just thought that after that, as we were all gutted, I just thought we've got a man there who's had a taste for it, we've got a squad there who's had a taste for it, and while nothing's guaranteed in the Championship, we really thought we could go again, and that would give me a lot of heart, did that as well. But I always wondered, is this gonna, could we match his ambition? I remember doing swapping a few voice notes with Matt, and when you just said, he says, because everyone else were thinking, if we don't go up, we've still got a solid base to go from. But me and Matt were saying, this is Huddersfield Town, it's just boom and bust. You just know that it won't be like that for us. We've got to take this chance to, pardon the pun of the podcast. And we were saying, it's so sad, that's just how we are. We never seem to kind of, build on stuff like other teams do and have a few good years. So part of me did go into Wembley thinking we've just got to do it because things will change. But obviously, as the season had gone and a good month after, nothing. Everyone report back to a pre-season. Obviously, we expect probably O'Brien and Toffolo to go, but Carlos was still there. And them signings pretty underwhelming. But you're always hoping we can get a couple of good Premier loans like we've had, in the last few years at Town and that as well. But without anything really, I mean, maybe the truth will come out at some point. But it just feels, doesn't it, that Carlos has looked with what he's got to play with, and look where he wants to take us. He wants to take us into the Premier League. But do the club want to go into the Premier League? I've always wondered that at Town. Again, it's just a gut feel from me, but I think we're quite happy just to saunter about in a mid-table Championship and maybe League One and keep going up and down and stuff like that as well. And I did think that, again, just like I did at Wembley, 2017, it's like, does the club really want to go up? And obviously we can't compete, to quote the old Chris Powell phrase, with a lot of the wages going around and that as well. But I just wonder what the guys think inside the camp now. Sorba, Thomas, Lee Nichols just signed a new deal. The new guys have come in on the back of, being sold Carlos ball kind of thing. And now it's all changed. And I know there's a kind of a lot of anger about, with Dean and what's happened. But Carlos' statement, I was still quite in shock like everyone else, but Carlos' statement kind of really hit home there as well, didn't it? About, that he'd gone and, left a bit of a legacy. And I'm sure he'll get snapped up on that as well. But and good luck to the guy. He sent us on an amazing ride last season. But yeah, just looking ahead for us, what's going to happen next. Danny Scofield, such a weird statement, one he put out today. Even Ellie McQueen, I watched it on Sky Sports News at the time. It's like, well, it looks like that he's the permanent manager, I think. So it's like even she didn't know. And I think you look at it, is he or not? It's really a really strange statement. I don't think that did anyone any favours really at the club. But yeah, someone texted me today and just said, why can we never have it nice at Huddersfield Town? She said to me, why can we never have it nice? And it's so true, isn't it? Every time we get something good, it always seems to go quick. And kind of Dean mentioned to that, didn't he, in his statement about the 12 months. Obviously, he thinks his big solid base and the club's in a great position. But yeah, I just think it's telling that a man who, we've got to believe him, not got another job to go into, he's effectively put himself out of work, doesn't see he can take Huddersfield Town forward. And yeah, we've had managers come and go in the past 100%, but I've never known anyone kind of walk because they don't feel that they can, have got the backing really and that as well. So it's a blow, and the season's very quick around the corner. The pre-season's already started and stuff as well. I think everyone's in a bit of shock really, and I'm sure it'll be like that in the training ground. No one ever saw this coming, and yeah, big blow. Just remember the good times under Carlos, some amazing nights. What a run at the end of the season. Well, that win at Middlesbrough when we looked absolutely sensational, that flirting with automatic promotion, the incredible night against Luton, everyone on the pitch, and yeah, cruel ending against Forest. But wow, yeah, I'm rambling on a bit now, but yeah, just hope that in time, if we look back on him and give him the respect he deserves. And Danny Scofield, mate, good luck, because I think you're going to need it, pal.
Cool. Okay, we've heard from Cozzy. So
what time is it now? Bloody hell.
Right, come on. Anyway, it's time to answer your questions, and thanks so much to everyone who sent them in. Unsurprisingly, you all had a lot to say. We were joking about how no one wants to give hot takes anymore, but manager leaves and suddenly everyone wants a question. So we'll start with this one from Rachel Mosley, which is quite simply, why has he left? What's happened? We were favourites for relegation and we finished third last season. That's a massive achievement, and I'm sorry to see him go. Is Schofield just a caretaker until they find someone? Why leave it so late? I feel like we've covered that. Would it be fair to say? Anything you guys want to say to Rachel?
It would be nice to 100% know why he left, wouldn't it? It would just be nice to know what it was. But it all seems a bit amicable, doesn't it? Like no one's pointing a finger at anyone. So, which is kind of nice. Like there's no bad blood there, obviously.
Yeah, I just hope some more information comes out.
Yeah.
But no, I think Rachel was bang on with that take. That's the correct reaction.
Speculation, I think his head was turned a little bit by someone, another job potentially down the line. That's what I think. To take him and his, probably second-hand guy, you'd say, wouldn't you? Is like, surely that's how that works normally, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interesting, guys. I don't know if you saw this, but Paul Ogden, obviously, a voice we all know well. He, don't know if you guys saw his quotes. So the next question was from John Noble, Clint, Chris. They all asked the same thing, which is why. So I think Paul Ogden might be able to come in here. Unfortunately, I can't cut him in. He's too big time for us.
Yeah.
But his quotes were, "This is a decision made solely by Carlos. There is no big fallout with the board, and he's not leaving Huddersfield for a better offer elsewhere. He had been privately concerned for some time about the relative lack of squad resources that will be available to him this coming season compared to their rivals for promotion. Having got third place last season, he thinks at best the furthest he could possibly take the squad. He thinks that it's best the further." That's really clunky. He's fearful the situation could go the other way. Basically, can't finish better than third.
That's interesting, Brady, because I hadn't seen those yet.
No, me neither.
Um,
So whilst it's, yeah, I suppose that does point things a bit back at the club again, doesn't it?
yeah.
Like,
Are you going to retract your apology?
We're not sat looking at the finances, but it does sound like we're not.
It's really difficult, isn't it? Because I get what the club is trying to do. Can't just shout all the time, throw money at this, throw money at that, because you see what happens. And there's only so many players that actually want to play in Huddersfield. I'm sorry to say that, but do you know what I mean? We got a really good bunch last season who actually wanted to come up, play in Huddersfield, play for the club. So it's like it is really difficult. I mean, you can have the result. Dean Hoyle doesn't. At the end of the day, Dean Hoyle doesn't want to be the chairman right now, or he wouldn't have passed it on to Phil Hodgkinson. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I don't.
You think so? I think he's enjoying being chairman at the moment. Would it be fair to say?
I think he's enjoying it, Brady. But I like this was not written in his script, was it? The thing was he'd pass it on.
His hand was forced a bit, I guess, to get back into it, wasn't it?
I suppose. Well, guys, I suppose based on what Oggy said there about privately concerned about the lack of squad resources that will be available to him, I think that's kind of judging from town Twitter, which I know maybe not always the best place to judge the mood, but I think that's the narrative that people seem to think is the reason Carlos has left. What do you think? There's any truth in that?
Well, that makes me think that O'Brien and Toffolo are definitely leaving, because in reality, you've added 2 new players to basically you're starting. The players that we've released were players that, apart Nabisar, bless him. I mean, he played plenty of games, but he was a good cover, wasn't he? But all the rest of the players that left weren't in that starting 11 or anything. There's not been really any other, I can't believe they've left. So that makes me think that O'Brien and Toffolo are destined to go. Potentially some others, maybe Sorba's thrown in the mix. Do you know what I mean? The fact that Paul Ogden's come out and said that, then you've got to kind of believe something there that's the thought. But it's like, so we've got those players now, so that's what I'm trying to get my head around, is they must be going because Carlos wouldn't have said that. Because when you look at it, we've added 2 or 3 players now into that squad that did really well, and surely there's potentially a couple more coming in. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, what do you think? Do you think it's a possibility that Carlos left because he wasn't convinced that he was going to get maybe reinvested in the squad if like O'Brien and Toff went?
Yeah, well, I fully believe what Oggy said, but it's hard to know what that means, right? What resources mean, whether it does mean he knows people are leaving and he's not going to get a couple of million out of those sales to spend. It's hard to know. What I was just thinking then actually was, even in spite of that, shouldn't you give it a go? Like,
you've done it already.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean you should just walk away, right? It's a bit like what I do on Footy Manager. It's not real life. Like, you should have a crack at it, I think. Unless he's really been told that anyone who goes out, we're not going to give you any of the money. Then it's a bit of a different story, because it's like, well, your hands and feet are really tied.
I think the thing is, Joe, right? So I think that maybe this is a bit of speculation. You can add a little jingle in there, Brady. So I think the club's view isn't it, that Toffolo is replaceable by Ruffles and O'Brien is replaceable by Scott High, I think. So I think maybe that was fed to him, because it resources. He could have been on about there wasn't enough toilet roll at Canalside or something.
I mean, that's definitely why he's left the club.
Isn't it? Might have been maybe not enough tapas. at Canal Side, or
Is that really rough stuff? Really rough.
Just cheap one, just 1 ply, no 2 ply.
Yeah.
But I like Scott High, but I hope that's not the club's view. I hope you're.
I don't think it is about Scott High. I think Ruffles. To be honest, I think Ruffles was signed, and the poor lad's not had a look in because I think there was rumours Toff was going last summer anyway. So I think we signed him just in case, and he's just obviously Harry had an amazing season. But yeah, O'Brien, I don't think they think Scott. I'd like to think they do. They don't think Scott High's the replacement for O'Brien. I believe they think they have to rebuild the midfield. Which is why we've got Kasumu in. I think Hogg will play anyway. We can come on to like pre-season, but I think Hogg will probably play centre back more anyway. Potentially. Well, who knows? We've got a new coach. I suppose Guy kind of following on from this theme, Guy Bradley asks, is Carlos left because he's not got the signings he wanted? So we had 2 come in the door yesterday, Kasumu and Mahoney. I don't know. Do you guys think there's any truth in that, or is it again just speculation?
Well, we've already said Kasumu's been on the cards for a while. Boyle for me replaces Sarr, so like you've got a like for like there. Mahoney is a weird one, isn't it? Mahoney's a bit of a, that guy's on a free, let's take him.
Yeah, because
there's nothing there really that I get excited about, to be honest. I think he's a solid player. The only thing maybe for me is that he's 24, 25, so he's still got a bit of time to develop, and he could become a world beat eventually. But there isn't really anything that makes me excited about it. So
poor bloke, not even started a game yet.
I know, Brady, but
welcome to the club, Connor.
Yeah, I think the thing that has made both, it's like the fact that Luton have somehow been outbidding us for stuff. Apparently,
I think that's James Justin's clauses, because that's the rumour, because he obviously got an England cap, so I think they got quite a big clause for that. So what I've heard, again, speculation, clearly just a speculation podcast.
Speculation. But the lad from Barnsley, we were after him, apparently, the striker.
Yep.
And that was apparently $1 million. They just bid another $1 million. So that could have been one. Because that's a bit annoying. Because no disrespect to Luton, but where's that money coming from? Like old Jones went on about last season about how fucking poor they were, and like, we've got no money compared to everyone else in the league. And like now they've spent pretty decent money on a handful of players now, I think. So that might have been the tipping point.
This is a tipping point.
He's already lost out on Adebayo, and then now is it Morris? Yeah.
I really wanted us to say he looked good against us. I did fancy him.
That's it, Joe. Apparently, we were basically going to sign him.
Yeah, but that point was more about like, I think players being signed that Carlos didn't want, right? That the listener.
But then Brady said right at the start, which I totally agree with, how many of those players last season did he actually want?
Yeah. I was just going to say that. Yeah, I think he'd have gone already if that was the case. If it's about him not having any transfer budget to spend, then
maybe it's a bodies. Maybe it's a bodies game. Maybe he wanted a similar amount to come in as last season. Like we have only brought 3 in, but we've shipped. Even though a few of the lads who didn't stay who've gone didn't play much. The squad has got thinned, hasn't it? So it does make a difference when you haven't got that competitiveness there and stuff like that.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, he does like working on quite a small squad, though, doesn't he? But I don't know. I think it's
what we need, Brady. Ring Carlos now and just ask him. That'd really.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I'm going to dial him in right now. No, It's interesting as well, though, because obviously we'll see if what plans change now. But Bromby did say about this window, it would be focusing on attacking players. So assuming if Schofield is the man, hopefully that's still the case. Because I think the thing is as well, Town, to get a difference maker, they need those Premier League loans, and they tend to come towards the end of the window anyway in quite a few cases. Anyway, so we'll move on. Marcus Wilkinson asks, is this departure worse than when Wagner left?
Not personally for me. I was absolutely gutted when Wagner left.
Yeah, same.
So I think sorry, jumping in, but I think the problem is, right, not the problem, but I think the difference is, and I think we touched on it, and the main pod touched on it after the playoff final, was there's a really weird atmosphere after we lost, wasn't it? Like, no one really cared about going up. Like, in reality, the majority of Town fans, I don't think particularly cared about going up, because it was like, we've been there, done it, and it's pretty terrible to lose every week. So I think the excitement was, at least we'll have another decent season in the Championship. The thing with Wagner going was like, that was the dream over with Wagner. Like, Carlos has brought brilliant excitement back, but because Wagner's already achieved that dream, there wasn't a dream with Carlos for me personally.
Okay,
there you go.
Do you agree with Tom?
Yeah, I would generally agree with everything you said. Yeah. To say we'd lost the playoff final, I was not that downtrodden about it. It was just nice to enjoy the season and the experience of being there. But compare that to when Wagner left, yeah, I was pretty distraught. Because again, it was like of his own volition, so I was even more annoyed about that, I think.
That lasted a week, that for me, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer.
Yeah, and I think, I think this time we won't go on. I think as well with the Wagner thing, you have hindsight, and we saw how terribly we did after that for quite a while. I don't think that'll happen to us this time. So yeah, I'm not as good about it.
Brady, do you not think we'll do a Barnsley? Because that's come up a lot. I've seen opposition fans saying, "Oh, you're going down. You're going to do a Barnsley."
Yeah.
It's tricky because I do think. Well, it's hard to say because Schofield, like I say, arrives the same time as Corberán did. So like they're same in that sense. But I don't know. I think in Carlos's first season, there were 3 worse teams than us. I think the teams that have come up from League One, Wigan, Rotherham and Sunderland, and they were a lot better than the teams were in the first season. I don't know, it's tricky because I think, there's professional pride that comes into it, and Nichols has been fantastic, Sorba's been fantastic, Tom Lees has been fantastic. I can't see, touch wood, I can't see everyone dropping off a cliff. I think the thing that was so good about us last season was we were defensively sound, and I think that counts for a lot. I don't think we're going to finish 3rd, put it that way. But I don't think we're going to get relegated either. So there you go. Anywhere from 4th to.
You know what? I just want.
22nd.
I take a season in the middle for once. It's so funny. Burnley fans. Did you see that? Burnley fans predicting that we'll finish top.
You're top, yeah.
A drunk Forest fan after the final grabbed me and said that we'll go up automatic next season. I was like, come on, mate, don't wind me up even further. But he was being genuine.
He was. I mean, to be fair, Joe, we had quite a lot of interesting takes from Forest fans on that leaving Wembley. So I think that's probably one of the better ones.
I seemed to be like catnip for drunk Forest fans after that final as well. They were just gravitating towards me.
Forest.
Okay, so we're also no for the old Wagner hit home. That was hard. I remember being at Soccer City when that news broke, and I just felt pretty grim, and I had to play side.
When I saw that picture of him waving to Town fans for the last time, broke my heart. That did. Broke my heart.
Anyway,
I love you, David.
He'll be listening.
That one's for you, David. Regular listeners is Mr. Wagner. So we'll move on then. Nick Barlow asks, where are we going as a football club? That's 2 managers now who have gone due to different visions. where do we want to be as a club? Bottom end of the league. That's what it looks like to me. I don't think we want to be bottom end of the league. I think I'll be completely honest here. Even with if Carlos was still here, I don't think we would have finished third. There's a lot of teams. I'm not comparing it to when Leicester won the league, but I think it's kind of like a good analogy that you can take. I think a lot of teams were sleeping last season. I think Sheffield United would be a lot stronger this season. I think West Brom can't be as bad as they were. You've got the Norwich, even though they look like they're not pulling up in the trees, they'll bloody win the league by canter. I'm sure Watford, Burnley's a bit of an interesting one, might do it us, but I think that was always going to be a struggle. We haven't done our pre-season pod, but my prediction for it was that I think we'd be top 10 with Carlos. I think with scope, it's tricky. We've got some more questions, which I think I'll touch on what Nick said, but I think this is mid, like based on everything at the moment. If you had to give me, I'd say mid-table. Just because Schofield's unproven, you don't know. What about you guys?
Again, that's what I'm after.
Good question. That
positive goal difference again. That's what I'd be happy with.
Exactly. You don't have to. What do you think, though, guys? Where do Nick asked? Where do we want to be as a club?
Good question. Good question, Nick. Because he's right. That's two managers in a row where the vision hasn't lined up. So that. And I guess Dino's in now, which you might have a different vision to Phil. But the fact that Bromby's still about, so has that vision changed potentially? Where does the club want to be? I think the club wants to compete competitively in the Championship without spending too much money. I think that is literally where the club wants to be. It doesn't want to.
You wrestle in a paper bag while you do this?
No, does it sound like it? Sorry.
Only for a second. You're all right now.
I think it's because I touched my mic for a second. Sorry.
Sorry, I interrupted you mid-point. That was a bit of a dick move. I apologise. Carry on.
That'll have ruined everyone's ears who are listening now. I forgot my point now, Brady. Thanks a lot. I was on a right rant.
I'm thinking of the listener experience. Someone needs to. Yeah, talking about being competitive.
Do some whale noises instead then. Competitiveness. So, the club wants to be self-sufficient. That's always been the aim, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. So it wants to compete in the Championship. I think that's the lowest level we want to compete at, and rightly so, because Town are a big club. And I don't have any of this like Town are small, blah, blah. Town are at least a Championship club. And I'd get it. I don't want Town to be splashing money and then go into trouble. So it's an interesting question that, and I think that's where we want to be. We want to be self-sufficient, doing its own kind of thing, but competing at the same time.
Yeah.
The worry is there's so many clubs in the Championship that spend a lot of money. And get away with it, really, actually, when you look at these rules that are supposedly there.
Yeah. I'm actually annoyed Tom said that, because I was going to say something similar and thought it was really clever.
And best thing is, Joe, I said that off the top of my head.
I know, I was thinking about it and I was like, this is really smart. And then you said it. Self-sufficient, that was the word. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think the club really think that much about we want to be a top 6 team, we want to be whatever. I think they just want to be self-sufficient and in the Championship ideally. That's probably where the disconnect's happening. But then again, you'd imagine that we've had that conversation with Carlos when he joined, that's what the club wanted to be. So why is this only bubbling over now, if that is the problem?
Joe, I know this was a different chairman. It was Phil Hodgkinson, but they had a certain conversation with the Cowleys, didn't they? And then when the Cowleys left, they come out and it was like a lot of things seem to change. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But Tom Hicklin asks, moving on, do you think Danny Schofield is good enough to be Town's permanent manager? And what impact do you think this will cause for the club going forward? Honest answer, don't know yet. I think he deserves a chance. I feel sorry for him because he has to follow the best season we've had since we went up last time. Yeah. So that's always a tough act to follow. But I think in terms of impact, it's tricky. I know Lewis is looking likely to leave. I think Toffolo, there's been interest from Forest. I think that probably means he'll go, which probably looking like anyway. It's just interesting to see what the other players think. I suppose we'll see. A couple of games in, won't we? You kind of you always get the rumours and the rumblings out. But I think it's too hard to say, really. We've not got a big enough sample size, so that's kind of my take. Joe,
very scientific, Brady.
Yeah. Not got anything quite as good as that. No, I'm just quite excited for the era because we haven't had like a. Is Scope a Town fan? I know
he's a Town legend, isn't he?
Yeah, but is he one of them that like secretly supports like a rival or something like?
Joe, he's got to be the first kind of manager we've had similar to Peter Jackson.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That I think that's why it's quite exciting that we've got. Obviously, that was a hell of a different time, but yeah, we've got a manager who is probably a supporter of the club, but at least is very like loyal to the club and has such a connection with the club, which is pretty exciting, I think. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Whether it will be successful or not, who knows? I've got a good feeling though.
Good. I like it when you've got a good feeling, Joe.
Yeah.
It makes me a little bit more excited about Town. Tom, again, do you agree with us? I suppose you do. You've kind of touched on. He's at the same place as where Carlos was when he joined.
Now I've had 3 pints and Joe's just said that. I'm buzzing. I can't. Danny Schofield's back. As long as he brings the mullet back, I'll be buzzing.
Yeah.
So on Danny Schofield, Lee Morris asks, if Schofield achieves a similar or better finish next season, will he be considered a genius and one of the club's greatest ever managers in the same way that Corberán has? Lee Morris there going for a little bit of a cheeky tone there. What a shock.
Lee loved Carlos. I know, and he sends me all the time. He says how much he loved Carlos. Probably he's rated him his favourite manager for Huddersfield Town. So that was sad. It didn't come across.
That is,
I got it.
I love Lee. But I've already had this discussion with Lee Brady, and I do agree with him. And I said to him, if Schofield did the same, for me, it'd be a bigger achievement.
Yeah.
If he did that this season coming, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he'd be off to another job for me. If he did that, someone would perch him up.
Yeah.
Well, you said be off to another job
last season, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know though, because the only thing I would say about that, Tom, sorry to be devil's advocate, is Carlos went from 20th to 3rd. If Schofield would be an amazing job, you've got to judge circumstances, but 3rd, a team that would finish 3rd, I don't know, could you argue it's the same? I think it would be a hell of an achievement, but
the championship though, Brady, it's like it literally has a reset every season. I mean, you get a few teams that are in and around there every season, but who was in the playoffs last season?
Luton, Sheffield United. Oh, before this season?
Yeah, before this season.
God,
the season just gone.
Swansea,
Barnsley,
Brentford, and Fulham. No.
Yes.
No. But do you know what I mean? There's my point. It is literally like they shake the ball and it's like, who's going to win the championship this season? And it's like random. It is so random.
Unless Norwich or Fulham are in the league.
Yeah. So Norwich will finish first.
Yeah.
And then it is like open. It's open.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would say, I think for me personally, if Danny Schofield got us into the top 6, that would be a bigger achievement than Carlos Corberán last season.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah. I agree with Tom. It would be a bigger achievement.
I like Joe. He always agrees with me, to be fair.
Yeah, we were on the same wavelength.
God, we need someone to disagree with you both. I think it'd be terrible. I'd be gutted if we got automatics. It'd really piss me off.
To me, that sounds like a good poll that should be chucked out after this.
Yeah, it does actually.
Joe. Oh, well, okay. Lee's poll. Okay. Oh, no, don't call it Lee's poll. That sounds something else.
We'll see how many people agree with Tom as well.
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting one. This was before, like, it was properly confirmed that Schofield's permanent. Who would you replace him with? Top Potato asks what a name that is, by the way. Has to be Rooney. I don't know. And he seemed to say O'Brien would good chance of keeping O'Brien for a season, as he might want to play for Rooney. So if you couldn't have Schofield, let's do speculative, because we've not done that enough on this podcast. Who would you have? Obviously, there's links with Ryan Manning, which, as we understand now, there's no truth in that.
Yeah. Breaking news. Breaking news.
Someone's got a lot of work to do to make these little bits.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tom's just doing the jingles for us. That's better.
Yeah, I'll just shout them out every time. Joe, go on then. Who ideally? Who's yours?
If you can't have Schofield.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought too much about it past Neil Warnock. I just thought Warney, and it made me really happy. Like one last hurrah, and I never thought past that. So yeah, that's my answer.
Is that because he's actually still a good coach, or do you just want Neil Warnock back in management? I feel it's the latter, Joe.
Yeah, it's more for the laughs, to be honest, because it'd be dire to go and watch, wouldn't it? Really, probably.
Yeah, but it'd be such a laugh, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
I loved I saw quite a few Town fans tagging him in, because now he's on Twitter, tagging him in tweets saying, "Come on, Warney, one last job."
Yeah, for a serious one, I really don't know who I'd go for.
I'd go for Maurizio Pochettino, clearly out of work. That's my serious one.
Yeah.
No, I'll let you think then, Joe. Tom, did you have anyone you like?
Realistically, Sean Dyche, but
is that realistic? Don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if it is it?
I think it is. He's had
I don't think so.
He's had 2 jobs in his whole career, Brady. Watford and Burnley. We're as big as those clubs.
Yeah, but I think he's proven he can do it in the Prem. Do you not think he's likely to get a lower Prem job?
Yeah, he'd be hanging around until someone got sacked. That's all I'm saying. He either hangs around until someone gets sacked and does the survival crap, or I'd try him. But like I said earlier, that's not what Town's position is it at the moment, those kind of managers, unfortunately. Because he would take a bunch of random players and do all right with them. He did that with Burnley, didn't he?
Yeah.
Matty Pearson strikes me as a player Dyche would love as well, to be fair.
Mate, there's a lot of players in this squad that are Dyche-esque.
Dyche-esque. Okay.
What about you?
Tricky. I'd not really thought about it. I think I didn't mind the links with Liam Manning. I quite like, although they've not all worked out. I think Town's approach, going for young up and coming managers, I think that's probably the way. We've talked about it there. Like, Championship is a bit for free for all, but Tom mentioned it earlier. Like Town's budget is insignificant compared to some of the other clubs who can just splash loads of money. So I think where Town can do better is the coaching, as we've seen with Carlos. So I think young and up and coming managers like Liam Manning's good. I quite like Ryan Lowe before he went to Preston. I think he'd be good. I'm not sure if he'd leave Preston now.
Good manager. They'll do it this season, I think.
Yeah.
I rate him.
Don't know. To be honest, tricky. I've not really thought about it. I mean, Schofield's boss. I asked the question, but actually, Top Potato I did. But not so sure about Rooney. I think. This is a Derby podcast. I think just interesting circumstances, and I wonder. I'd like to see what it's like at his next job.
I don't want to become Wayne Rooney's Huddersfield Town either.
Yeah.
I get the point. Like, I think too much comes with Rooney as well. Like, did you watch the Rooney documentary? When you look at all the stuff, and then it still goes on. Even at the start of last season, a few things come out, didn't there? A few videos of him falling asleep with a stripper in front of him. But do you know what I mean? Too much goes on with him, and I would.
Yeah.
Are you telling me you wouldn't want to see a picture of Wayne Rooney?
Tracksuit.
Town tracksuit in Mavericks.
Yeah, with a granny twerking all over him.
Anyway, that's potentially libelous that we're getting into there. So
cut that. But it's a good question. Well, I was going to say one. I think for me, Manning. If you're going to appoint someone like Manning, because you look at where he's been before MK Dons, you might as well go with Schofield for me.
Okay, fair. We'll move on because I feel like there'll be some people going, "Oh, it don't matter. We've got Schofield. Stop talking about it." But this is what it is. It's fun, isn't it? Look, we've all had a bit of bad news.
We've all had fights.
Yeah. So there was some other questions. Rob asked something similar. What's the ambition of the club? I think we've kind of touched on that. Yeah. This is an interesting one from, I'm going to kind of bunch these together. So Mark Harrison and Terry Dave ask similar. So Mark Harrison says, will our philosophy mean that we're always limited to who we can have as a boss? Currently a head coach with potentially limited input into recruitment versus a manager position with more scope and calls more of the shots. And Terry Dave, on a similar note, should we just learn to accept this is what we are? We won't spend big. Model is set up to bring in young and sell on at a profit or bring in free with experience. Any manager expecting that to change only has themselves to blame unless somehow we go up and then maybe get a few quid. I think that's interesting actually because, if you want to look from the outside view, maybe I think there's a lot of truth into that. Maybe there is a limit. I think we were talking about this, but if Wagner didn't go up, I wouldn't be, if we didn't go up in that season, I wouldn't be surprised if what's happening with Carlos now, Wagner did the same.
Yeah, true.
Who knows? Because it's big hypothetical, it's a what if, but Wagner, I wouldn't be surprised.
Wagner would have got another job if we didn't go up. 100%. 100%. Good questions, those.
Very good. I think they're bang on as well with what they were asserting. Yeah,
that's it, isn't it? Like I was saying, Dyche is never going to come to Town now. The way Town are set up, that's just how we are now. Unless someone has a drastic change in the philosophy and ideals we have, managers who are kind of been there, done that, are not going to be coming to Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to take at times when you see like the money floating around the Championship. Like I think one of you two mentioned earlier, it's a bit frustrating, but at the same time, we're probably fairly safe in the knowledge that we're going to have a football club next year and the year after and the year after that. But you have to wonder about some of these Championship teams chucking this amount of money around. Like, is it sustainable? Are they going to be around?
And I don't want to look like I know a lot of people, again, judging from Town Twitter, are very angry with Dean Hoyle. But you spoke to, when you were on the train to Justin, Tom, speaking to Justin Peach.
Yeah.
He made the point that, Phil businesses went bust if Dean wasn't there.
Exactly.
He said obviously he's a Derby fan.
I know. Yeah.
We could have been a Derby. So I know that's
Derby have been
that's
lucky.
Not great.
Derby have been lucky to, and I no way did I want Derby to go bust, but they've been lucky to kind of hold on the way they have. The fact that they've only literally just been taken over is quite surprising that the EFL let them go on that long when you think of how Bury's situation was and all that. Like Bury literally had like a couple of days. Bury and Bolton was like a couple of days if you don't find someone. So yeah, we don't want that again. We've already had it. We almost went completely out of it. I'd rather have a club to support in any league than anything. It's difficult, isn't it? You always want the club to do the best, and when we've had a manager who's taken us to a playoff final, you think then we'll keep him and keep that momentum going. Whatever's happened, it's happened. but Town aren't going to be silly and go and get someone who's wanting silly amount of wages that we can't afford.
Yeah. I mean, I posed that question because Adam asked if we have to cut our cloth accordingly to avoid becoming the next Derby County. So be it. Better to have a middle of the road team than risk no team at all.
Yeah.
And he said discuss with 2 exclamation marks. So Adam, we discussed that there for you. Fair point.
Agree, Adam.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Okay. So we're nearly done, chaps. Just a couple more to get through. Interesting one. This Mike clearly wanted to cause a little bit of trouble. No shots on target in the player final and left Tino Andrew on the bench. We also dropped 20 points from winning positions last season due to Carlos's tactics. Is it a major loss? I think it, again, don't want to be that guy, only time will tell, but immediately right now, as we talk on the day of him being sacked, I think it is a major loss. I think we saw Carlos improved a lot, and in fairness to him, adapted really well. You know, like he came in wanting to do his own style in that first season and kept tweaking and kept going and having players to fit his system. So I think it is a major loss. I think Carlos, you know, that playoff final was terrible. It was a really bad game. But I think that's both teams involved in that, and there's a lot of nerves in that. Whereas I think you look at what some of the managers said, you know, about playing Carlos. Like Tom, how many previews did we do where we'd hear a manager saying, they don't like Chris Wilder didn't like playing Carlos, couldn't guess his tactics. Nigel Pearson, again, maybe saying it to save his own bacon, but just said the best team they've played against. I think Carlos was tactically second season spot on. That's why we finished third. So I think it is a major loss at this point.
Yeah, it's a major loss. I think when you look at where we finished, going into the next season, it is a major loss. Ideally, we give him what he needs for me, but then we're going back to do you want to risk the town thing? I saw someone really interestingly say, I'd happily pay like 400, 500 quid for a season ticket if that meant.
That's my next question, Tom.
Sorry,
HTAFC, no, it's good to lead into. HTAFC 86 says, I'd rather spend 400 quid on a season ticket and see some investment go for it than go through this every other year. Would you, if they raised season ticket prices and it meant we could, you know, realistically, it's probably not going to fetch you as much money as like selling an O'Brien for 10, 12 million. But would you guys consider that? Would you pay more for a season ticket? I know it's different, but hypothetically, would you pay more for a season ticket if it meant there's more investment in the players?
Hypothetically, if it meant we'd be able to sign 2 players, let's say that. If Town,
I'm not saying like it means we're suddenly going to, you know, spend 10. Like, you know, we're not going to do,
because in reality, at Town, it doesn't make that much difference. Because what we sold 15,000 this year, right? Yeah. At 400, 500, Town aren't selling that many, so that's the reality there. And then does it almost? Do you know what I mean? Do you almost all make the same anyway? But hypothetically, Brady, I would, but maybe I wouldn't because I live so far away now. So I buy one now next to my dad, but only because it's cheap. Because I can afford to come up and not go to every game, but still be able to go. So,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So what, like 15,000 season tickets, that brings in at 250. I know it's 299 for someone, but let's rough maths. That's 3.75 million. Whereas if you charge it 400 quid, that's 6 million.
But then you've got to sell 15,000. So there's.
It's an interesting question, Joe. Sorry, it sounded like you were going to say something.
No, I was just saying I'd pulled out the calculator as well, and at first I didn't think it'd make that much difference, but it does. And if it's hypothetical, then we would still sell 15,000, and it makes a big difference.
Well, then you would. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think ultimately, again, Tom is right. We're not going to sell 15,000 at like 400. So I guess
I just think go back to that other question where we've just got to accept it. This is Town.
Yeah, I'd made my peace with it actually over the past few years. I'm fine with it as long as we're not like scrapping for relegation and just being pretty crap like we were before. If it's like, obviously last season's amazing, but if we're mid-table and we're playing like decent stuff, we pull out a few good results, good few wins away from home, that's fine for me. Every few seasons, you're going to have a good run at you and you might get up, as long as you're there or thereabouts. So yeah, I think we just have to accept that.
Yeah. I mean, part of HTAFC 86 question as well was, yes, the recruitment team did brilliant last year, but it's hard to forget the money squandered in the Prem and also the likes of Rolando Aarons. Do we need to, as fans now, need to look at making a stand? Don't think it's quite making a stand yet, personally.
No.
I think Aarons as well. I know Aarons gets bagged on a lot as well, but I think that's maybe more about the recruitment team because he was clearly very injury prone. But I feel so sorry for the lad. Like he's just, like he's not. I'm sure more than anyone, he wants to play and get out on the pitch and make a difference. I don't think he wants to be going for a rehab all the time. So
yeah, it was like his last chance with us, wasn't it? I think he did genuinely want it to work out for himself.
I mean, he still could. Like, I know that sounds crazy and people might laugh when I said that, but like if he has an injury-free season, very unlikely, unfortunately, given his track record. But Wardy had an injury-hit season. Maybe Aarons can make a difference. Who knows? Can't get.
He ended up being the best player in the championship. Fact last season.
There you go. Wardy, not Ronaldo.
Wardy,
just to clarify. Matt Shaw, not our Matt, different Matt Shaw. Too many Matt Shaws who support Town, if you ask me. Will the fitness and nutrition team stay at the club, or are they likely to go with Carlos? I think they have been instrumental in developing players. Good point. I think Carlos was big part of the fitness, introducing it in, and the nutrition. But I don't know. Surely, Joe, they'd still have the same methods. Like you'd see the methods that are going on, and if there is that continuity with Schofield, it should still be there. Hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know whether the personnel will actually change, but from what some of the comments said, they want to continue the same mentality and the way of doing things. So yeah, I think whether the personnel changes or not, they'll definitely be trying to carry on the same regime. I think that's ultimately why I'm not overly worried about the whole thing as well. The more I think about it, it's just one man, like one cog changing in the whole machine. I think the club want to keep everything similar to how it was before. So yeah, I think we'll be all right. But yeah, ultimately, I don't know who those people were that were behind the food and conditioning. But yeah, I think we'll want to carry that on, right? You think the same?
Yeah, you assume so. I don't see why not. And like you say, if they want that continuity, I don't know. Yeah, I don't see why not. And to be honest, like being a fit team counts for a lot. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
100%. Everything you've just said is 100%. I agree with that.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so we've got through this quite a bit. Last question, bit of a cheeky one. Jay Bentley asks, which European side do you think wanted Danny Schofield?
That was my favourite bit from the statements, to be fair.
Yeah. I think they were playing fast and loose with the truth, and it was like the Swedish Premier League or something that they were classing as a top European division.
I tried to search if there was any rumours anywhere or like odds on Danny Schofield, and it just didn't come up anywhere. Brady, you made a good shout about it being Scottish League potentially, didn't you?
To be fair, I think people were joking.
Which is funny, yeah.
Yeah, I think people were joking about that. To be fair, the only one I saw where, again, this is purely speculative. Stephen Chicken, if you're listening, ask Danny Schofield if he'll ever tell you. I'm sure he won't, but if you could tell us off record, I'd like to know. I saw someone say actually, because Dean Whitehead's gone to
that was the only place I thought Brady, because there was a little overlap, wasn't there, with Dino and Schofield potentially. When did Dino leave? 2020 and early 2020. That's when Schofield came in.
Yeah.
So there might have been a tiny little overlap.
And where's Dean? Dean now?
Besiktas.
I can never say that.
Besiktas.
Yeah.
I guess you would say that's the top European division. Not really, but you would.
Well, they get Champions League, Europa League.
Yeah. Interesting.
Don't be going after Turkey, Joe.
Yeah.
I've just got back from Greece. I'm going.
Joe's there, and they take that Besiktas pod tomorrow.
Apologising. Public apology.
Yeah, we don't know. I would be curious. Maybe Besiktas makes sense, but yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, to be honest,
I'd love to know that. I'd love to know that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it in terms of questions, really. I suppose, lads, I'll ask this one because why not? Seems like Carlos is obviously, from statements we've read, it was his decision to leave. Where do you think he's going to end up next? Because he will go back into management. If you had to get, I'm not saying specific club. Do you think he's go to another championship club? Or I have a feeling he might go back to somewhere in Spain, personally.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I've always had Villarreal. That's where he'd go. And I don't know why that is. But
he's got history there, hasn't he?
Oh, that's where he's goalkeeper, wasn't he? Or goalkeeper coach or something. So I think back to Spain, definitely Brady, yeah.
Yeah.
For me.
I had Stoke in my head for some reason. Just like got those resources. I don't think he could get above Championship, to be honest. He's had one very good season, but like you said earlier, he also had not so great a season as well. So it's like not fully proven. And yeah, for some reason I thought Stoke.
What about you, B. Brady?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just checking on that. When Corberán retired from playing at the age of 23, worked at the Villarreal C and B teams as a fitness coach.
Right.
And then he was named main fitness coach for the main squad. I think it's interesting. I honestly don't know. Again, it's just a pure speculation question, but I think this is, to be honest, the only place I could have seen genuinely, and it made me really worried, and it's not going to happen now, but if Leeds got relegated, I think I could have seen him going there.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have kept Jesse Marsh, and I don't think Jesse Marsh would have stayed in the Championship. So that was the only one. That was the concern. I know they've gone for a different style, but a lot of Leeds fans, when we got Carlos, thought he was going to succeed Bielsa anyway. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. Again, Championship is tricky because which clubs would you say? I don't like West Brom. If Steve Bruce gets off to another bad start, don't know.
Yeah, but everyone's got a manager now, haven't they? So it's like
yeah, that's the other thing.
I'm trying to think of a team that's.
He's not a firefighter, is he? It's not someone you bring in midway through a season.
Interesting. Some people said Derby, which was interesting, but I think they're going to give that Racine.
Liam Racine, yeah. I don't see why I'd go to Derby personally. I don't think I think he's, it's League One, isn't it? Like, I hope Derby do well, but it's a tough division to get out of. You've seen that with Sunderland and with us, obviously. Yeah.
But I think Spain.
Anyway, you think Spain? Okay.
Yeah. He'll do well in Spain.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, Joe, we know this from Football Manager. He's a great assistant, so might go to a top club.
Yeah. Was it you that got him in as an assistant? I never managed to.
No, James. If you want to know James' Football Manager career, because that's what you came for. He replaced Carlos Corberán, and then years later brought Carlos Corberán as his assistant. So the guy.
I think he also got Neil Warnock as a scout. It was just the perfect save.
And Hoggy, wasn't Hoggy a fitness coach or whatever?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should leave it there. Is there anything you guys want to add before we end this podcast?
Maybe we'll eventually do that return to the Mac 11.
Oh yeah, that was the joke at the start. We were going to do a return to the Mac 11 podcast.
That was literally booked in for tonight. Literally. we were going to do a nice fun pod because we were like, ooh, what a wonderful season.
Yeah.
Let's do a nice light-hearted pod for everyone to look forward to the season to come. And then literally this morning it was like, yeah, your manager's gone.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it on that nice cheery note. I think, that's it for today. Look, time's a great healer. And if you need to rant about it on social, be the edgy person who thinks this is fine or meme your way out of this one. You do you, hon. But, football, it's always happening. It never stops. So we'll see what happens. But thanks to everyone for listening to this. To Tar for now and up the town.
Up the town.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, and they're the pride of the town. And the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.